Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. This week we are going to be doing something a little bit higher level than we have been in terms of content. So we are basically going to be looking at RESTful APIs. We're going to be talking about how they all kind of work and how they actually should be developed versus what we actually know about them. Now, I've got a page up here. This is the creator of the RESTful API, Roy Fielding, based on his dissertation many, many years ago. And you see these posts are from 2008. I'd highly recommend giving this a read because it's kind of an interesting perspective and a little bit combative as well. So if you're looking for a chuckle in the middle of your day, this is good as well. But a lot of what we're doing with REST is based on what he created as part of his dissertation quite a while back. So we're going to start talking about hypermedia APIs. Now, with these, this is basically the concept of REST and how it should be. And we're going to talk about different levels of restfulness with this. Pretty much everything we have really done so far, typically it's a level 0 of REST. So it's basic interaction. Um, we'll see as we kind of get through this, but there are different ways to describe it. And the Richardson maturity model is a nice way to kind of get an overview of that as well. And I'll put this link in the description and in Blackboard and everywhere we need to read it. But basically, it's the different kind of categories of implementing a RESTful interface. So pretty much all the screenshots are from this article here. And it's going to basically kind of build up to a fully RESTful application. And this week as well, in terms of the other videos, there's going to be a few demos of differing levels of restfulness. There are some packages and there are some example applications out there for developing a properly RESTful application, but they usually take a little bit of effort. It's not just doing a curl request, basically. There's a bit more to it. So this concept of Hypermedia API. Basically, here we have an application where we are having a very data-driven approach to information processing. So there's going to be an API that we have to call, right? So we hopefully understand and know that from our past experiences with a little bit of Flask, a little bit of Rails, and we have that kind of RESTful call, right? We call a remote URL, we get some resource back, and ideally that's can be set up as a RESTful interaction, right? It gets a bit deeper than that. Effectively, what we're looking for is that we are going to be talking to various endpoints on our server, where these endpoints are going to give us some sort of a resource specifically related to that endpoint. And we're going to use our HTTP verbs, our get, post, patch, delete, all of those to basically facilitate these interactions. And with that, we're going to get a response back. It'll be a packet of some sort of information. These days, typically JSON, but nothing stopping you from using XML or whatever data language you prefer. And we'll get a response code with that as well, where that response code is ideally self-contained to that request. Maybe it's everything was okay, or rejected because you made the wrong API call. This kind of is driven by the application itself and what level of restfulness we're at. But basically, the idea here is that we're going to encode everything for a properly RESTful application. We'll kind of see how we get towards this level 3 style. Basically, it's a fully RESTful, properly RESTful application. And this is, again, something that we'll be getting to in a little bit. But the idea is that we have some clients here, we have some server endpoints here, and we make a call to a particular resource on our server, and we're going to get a response back with not only the data, but where we have to go after this point. So the idea really is to absolutely completely decouple everything from our client to our server to all of our what we're going to call out of bands information or domain knowledge. Basically, everything is going to be encapsulated in this packet. So again, we'll be getting to this in a little bit. Now, if you want to watch and read religious debates on the internet, highly recommend checking out, I guess for one, the blog that I showed you earlier. The comments are fun. to read. Here's another one. So this is a Stack Overflow post basically describing, you know, the asker wants to know about HATE-OAS and what that means for RESTful applications. And the answers and comments are just pure Stack Overflow, I guess, if you kind of have used it in the past. Um, this particular acronym is basically our full level 3 hypermedia driven API. So as we get into this, we're going to be going through the Richardson maturity model of restfulness, and these are going to be the categories or the levels of rest, starting with level 0, going up through level 3. Again, one thing I want to stress is that what we typically consider to be a RESTful application is not technically correct if you are just using it as an enthusiast or hobbyist and you think you're implementing a RESTful application. The creator, Roy Fielding, again, has very specific definitions of what a RESTful API is, and we can hopefully understand why they are the way they are. Everything is decoupled. Everything is very kind of nicely packaged for clients to do their own thing, servers to do their own thing, and we can make updates pretty seamlessly to all the various parts. It's kind of the dream of any software engineering application. With this, what we're getting towards is that when we have a client-server interaction, the domain knowledge, the out-of-band information, these don't dictate how things happen. And what this really means, and when I say out-of-band or domain knowledge, it's basically the idea that you have a design document somewhere specifying that our home page has this set of links, and then our profile page has this set of links, or our application is going to look exactly like this. You are referring to some external documents, some external resource where it's not part of our application here. And the idea is that with a properly RESTful application, that everything that our application needs to know is inside of these responses. The home page is going to be built up out of the information sent from the server. So the idea would be, let's say that I have a title bar for my web page, and then I have a bunch of links to the various pages. The idea would be that we would send a request to the server, and the server would send back the links that we need to follow. And this is for like an HTML example. Typically, this kind of interaction might be completely hidden from a user. I'm just kind of using that example to visualize. This would be more if we had like a programmatic API that we're calling. So we want to get a list of users from Twitter. We want to get a list of comments from Discord, something like that. So we're reaching out to some external API and we're getting a response back. Okay, well, we have this information. What do we do with it next? Right? Do we want to edit a profile? Well, if we want to edit a profile, we might have a link that says, okay, well, if you want to do that, go to /edit/profile/user ID. Okay. So basically, the idea is that everything is fully encapsulated in this packet. And if we were to go that route, if we were to have a fixed structure where there is this out-of-band information, there is basically, again, very specifically defined ways of interaction. That is not REST, that is a remote procedure call. Basically, the distinction is that things are a little bit more tightly coupled, and you have to have this domain knowledge rather than it being wholly, completely flexible. Now, hopefully you can kind of extrapolate mentally where the purely RESTful application is going to be a lot harder to implement because it is so flexible that your application needs to be smart enough to follow these links and understand how to parse out this data. So that's kind of the idea here. Now, I know we haven't really talked about RPC too much outside of the fact that it exists, but the idea basically is that you have a client, you have a server, and you have some kind of an RPC interaction. And this is usually like the networking call from a client to a server and back, basically. So you have your client app, there's a little RPC bit to it that will reach out to a server. You can basically think of this as we are making our HTTP request with very specific instructions, a very specific structure, and we're getting back a very specific bit of information. No real difference to a traditional RPC call here. Think of the Flask applications that we looked at where it was just the basic routing. You go to slash, you get homepage back. You go to slash profile, you get user data back, right? Very limited. All right, long enough for this little intro video. We will go into the different levels in the next one. Everybody.